Ah, why the hell did you turn towards the hose?
Lesbian lover.
Tom and Gabby will not provide you a lesbian lover.
Where is the economy going? Let's take that approach.
Particularly for sellers, like, why does that matter to you?
You said earlier, it's all that matters. I think that it's the one thing that can be done to start slowing the market, which we need. What's going to happen to the money?
If you shout, it doesn't mean that they can hear you. It just means that you annoy me and probably break your microphone. This is dope. There we have it. What's up, guys? Welcome to another episode with Jay and Ben.
I didn't know we were jumping right into
stories. We're jumping right into
I thought this was one of those quiet
videos where we don't talk.
Well, the opening scene.
Like a silent Charlie Chaplin thing.
You're going to dominate this thing.
Oh,
Stop.
this is going to be fantastic.
Stop.
Ah, damn it. Okay, guys, some highlights that we're going to be talking about today. Obviously, this morning, the interest rate hike from the Bank of Canada. We're going to be talking about that ever-looming, quote-unquote, recession. I don't know why I quoted that.
It makes no sense.
The ever-looming recession.
The recession, and tied to that, employment and some details and ideas around that. And then Mr. Poilievre's 2 cents on gatekeepers of City Hall.
That's it. And then, maybe not in this order, but we're going to talk about what that means really for sellers at the moment with the market, how it could potentially change.
Which is the most important thing, the people in the market who've taken the risk and are in, and what's going to happen to the money.
If you shout, it doesn't mean that they can hear you. It just means that you annoy me and probably break your microphone.
That's the point.
Okay, let's jump into it, guys. First of all, first thing we should talk about is the brand new news is the rate hike. So, Bank of Canada.
Finally a respectable hike.
Well, they announced 0.5. There's going to be pros and cons to this from whichever party you're on. I think for the large part, the markets were aware of the possibility of a 0.5. There's always a discussion about it.
Everyone tries to forecast
everything. There's always a discussion about it, and it typically ends up being 0.25. So this is the biggest rate hike since the year 2000, I think. 2000.
So Bank of Canada is now at 1%.
So what that basically means is that's what the Bank of Canada are charging additionally to the banks and other lenders, etc., for your mortgage. You would find that the banks will typically put interest rate hikes on it themselves, of course, because they want to continue making the profit, especially now they're now getting taxed even extra by Trudeau on their profits. So that's why you start seeing interest rates go up. So unfortunately, it's not just a case of, oh, my interest rate is going to go up 0.5% and I'm done. Which is like what, 24, 25, maybe $30 on top a month. It's on top of that. How that changes things?
Lesbian lover.
Tom and Gabby will not provide you a lesbian lover. How that changes things is you'll typically see those interest rates hike. Less people can afford to buy, especially with the stress test being, I think, 2% above. And that is what Jay has been talking about, is actually going to curb the market because there's just not enough people out there to buy. It typically hits the entry-level market more than most. More than any other bracket.
Well, they're the tightest.
Just because they're the tightest. It will have a bit of a knock-on effect, but it will hit the $600,000 condos more than it's going to hit the $2 million houses on the west side.
I don't think you can get houses on the west side for $2 million. But this is the one thing that the government can do to start backpedaling on the one thing they did to get the market to this rate, as we've gone back and forth on, to this point, I should say. So rate increases, I think, should be very welcomed. Money is going to get more expensive. Now, we've talked about this as well, people that have rate holds, 30, 60, 90 days left still. So we're not going to see an immediate, we'll say, softening, I don't believe. I think we're going to see consistency while people start using up their rate holds. Mm-hmm. But they have put it up, and I'm glad personally that they have, because I think the market is a bit ridiculous. And I think that it's the one thing that can be done to start slowing the market, which we need. So this is a good thing.
Yep, beyond providing more supply for homes, which kind of leads us into the next point as well.
It's a byproduct of the cheap money. We've talked about this.
So obviously the Conservatives are now going through the process of electing a new leader, and depending on which party or which candidate you fall under, Pierre, is it Poilievre? I can never pronounce his last name. He came out recently and said his platform is going to be to attack the gatekeepers, if you will.
Poilievre?
I don't know. We'll have to bring that up.
Now that you said it wrong, I now can't remember the right way.
Pierre Poilievre?
Poilievre, I think.
Anyway, his platform is to attack the gatekeepers, which are reducing the amount of homes that can be built because of just the process it takes. And
the bureaucracy, the layers.
The red tape. But he actually came out and said from start till finish for all of the processes involved for each, I think it's for each permit or application that's from start till finish when it's completed, costs apparently $644,000 or something ridiculous like that. So naturally there's a lot of fat which can be trimmed off of there, which can obviously help, but that is a longer term fix. To your point, we're not going to get an answer to the market with that type of change now, but that's a longer term play.
But I believe that streamlining from City Hall forward for permitting, all development, zoning and all that is the biggest thing provincially that can be done to assist the local market. Federally, of course, it's the rates that gets handed down from the top there, but provincially, that's the highest and best use of a fix is, for lack of better words, attacking City Hall and unlayering their onion layers of unneeded cost and bureaucracy. So hopefully that takes place. I don't know how that will look, and again, when that change will take place in the upper echelons to actually want to do something like that. But that, I definitely agree to your point, which you've been talking about on a provincial level, that's the most important thing, to get the market to tone down by way of getting product out the door.
The slow J. McInnes end to a sentence.
Okay, so last but not least, where is the economy going? Let's take that approach.
Particularly for sellers, like why does that matter to you?
You said earlier, it's all that matters. Let's start with a favorite of the federal government, the unemployment rate. So the unemployment rate just hit 5.3%. Comparatively, that is compared to 5.7, which was February 2020, so middle of COVID.
Below pre-pandemic levels. We have been for a while in Vancouver.
Of course,
but
that's
now
countrywide.
Countrywide, yeah.
So obviously they lean on those numbers very heavily. Now, there's still obviously the talk of recession in the air, and with increasing rates on all fronts, is that going to happen or not? That's obviously yet to see. But more importantly to this conversation is what are prices? What are the crystal balls saying prices are going to be?
Okay, so
in the short term?
Here's a question for you. I would be interested to know this. If inflation has had a knock-on, I guess you could say positive effect on people getting back into the workforce, just because obviously things are more expensive now, money is needed more than ever.
Quite possible. Probably a minority aspect of the workforce, but as prices go up with everything, obviously if there's fixed income people, that's going to hurt. So definitely, but more importantly, when you pull that number back to Vancouver, this is great that more people are working, and that's obviously the best starting point, but are these jobs that are paying
for home purchases,
but enough to make a difference in home purchases?
No.
So that's great and all, but I still don't think here in our city it's a massive sign of change to come.
No, when you look at our GDP numbers as well, they're pretty scary, very high. Obviously,
debt to GDP ratios, yes, countrywide are right up there.
A huge indicator of the recession as well. So as a seller, everything is practically pointing the wrong way for the market to keep increasing. And then what happens is there's a mindset shift which needs to take place, because sellers believe the market's up, I'm going to keep going up and up and up for the next 2 years, 3 years when I decide to sell. And as we know, the market's always going up until it's not. And then it starts to adjust and change.
I think that rates will possibly continue, but I don't think it's going to be a long-winded thing. I think they're going to go up and it's going to affect quite severely, and then they're going to get tick back down, possibly even this year.
Okay, so this is a good point because we're going into like unfamiliar territory here. The government is trying to balance out our economy with
balancing
settling
off the
it,
bottom,
but without crashing it at the same time. So I agree. I think you're going to see like a bit of this with the rates, which breeds uncertainty, and we all know that people hate uncertainty.
So like this, when a few weeks back when they first talked about the first raise, and we talked about before when like foreign buyers tax got in, all of these big fundamental decisions that are made from government levels makes people hesitate. And that hesitation creates a lack of consistent sales numbers, and a lack of consistent sales numbers always goes back to, well, that's the gap. If nothing comparable has sold in the last 30, 60, 90 days, am I still worth what it was 90 days ago, or am I actually lower? There's nothing to show otherwise, but the market sentiment is no longer there. So it'll be interesting. To your other point, I think that if people are wanting to wait and assume that things are just going to keep rolling, keep climbing, I think that time is done in the near term.
Yeah, I think you're kind of coming to the tail end now of a really good market. And so realistically, if you're a seller and you're thinking about it, within the next couple of years, now is really your time. You are risking the level of uncertainty that comes, an adjustment, whatever happens economically wise over the next couple of years, because nothing is pointing to it being higher or even the same as now these adjustments are coming in. So everything that we can foresee coming, this is dope. Everything that we can see coming in the future is not pointing towards prices going up. It's actually, if anything, going to be geared more towards helping buyers. Naturally, again, we don't have that crystal ball, but
I think it's pretty, in 300 to 600 days, I think we can safely say rates will be higher and wages will not be. Exactly. So that, I mean, the writing's on the wall with that, with pricing. So I think that's it.
I think that pretty much sums us up for this week, guys. Of course, reach out with any questions, comment below. Our contact details are coming up next as well. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next week.
Lesbian lovers.
Huh?
Lesbian lovers.
Oh yeah, lesbian lovers.
Interesting.